All right, 1A. Find the asymptotes. Va, ha, and sa. Ha and sa, one of them is always going to be none. Or D and E, either one. None, D and E, you can put either answer. Okay, taking a look. What's different about this? What do you notice about the denominator?
There's no X.
There's no X. Now, there was a homework question you had back in a few days ago, and I haven't had a chance to go over it with you. So that is correct. Say it louder. Won't they all just be nothing? None.
Did you say D and E?
D and E, that's fine. All right. Now, if you are working with a problem and there is no X in the denominator, that means all of your asymptotes are going to be what?
D and E.
D and E, none. Make sense? Yes or no? Okay, again, this is just y equals 1/3 x plus 5/3. What kind of graph is that? 1/3 x plus 5/3. Linear. Do you agree it's a linear graph? All right. Make sense?
Yep.
Okay, next one. Va, ha, and sa. All right, vertical asymptote. What makes the bottom 0? Is that what I asked? Nothing. Do you guys agree nothing makes the bottom 0? When you solve this, you cannot take the square root of a negative and get a real number. We don't use imaginaries when we do asymptotes.
Wait, so you're setting the bottom equal to 0 because...
Vertical asymptotes, you always check to see what makes the denominator 0.
Yeah. Okay.
And if you don't remember that, look back in your notes. It's in there somewhere. What makes the denominator equal 0? All right. So, since there's nothing, we could put none or D and E. All right. How do we find horizontal? We have it in our notes. We take the limit as x approaches infinity, which means I can use the shortcut. Top heavy, bottom heavy, or the same. And what is it? Bottom heavy. Which means what?
0.
Now, I had a few kids write this on the quiz, and I let them pass, but will I mark it wrong on the test?
Yes.
What do I need?
X.
Why?
The X is on the vertical, horizontal is Y.
Wait, so are we told that it's X?
Why?
I don't know about the horizontal.
Were we told this? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yes, it's in our notebooks.
So will it tell us on the test?
It will not tell you on the test. You will just need to know.
So how will you...
Look back right here. If you look back at 10.3, we have a little note box here, a little note bubble. How to find the vertical asymptotes, and I just wrote it down in our worksheet. What is it? What makes the denominator equal to? 0. How to find the horizontal asymptotes? I just wrote that down as well. Limit as x approaches infinity. Got it? Yes? All right. Slant. What's the slant? None or D and E. Why is it none? Will you ever have horizontal and slant at the same time?
No, you won't.
One of them is going to be none, or both of them in this case. All right. How do we know? Slant only happens when?
Top heavy.
When it is top heavy. Good job. Hello, Mrs. Torres. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. All right. So 120. So we only have slant if it is top heavy. And is this graph top heavy?
No.
No, it's bottom heavy. All right, and it makes sense because if it was top heavy, what would the horizontal be?
It would be X.
If it was it would be D and E or none. Yes.
So there, when nothing equaled 0, you just called it none?
None or D and E, either
Yeah,
one.
but when, because like another time you would, like, was it quadratic formula or long division? Did you ever
Slant.
Quadratic formula?
Slant, we do long division. No, we haven't done quadratic.
Okay.
You do long division on the slant.
Okay, so if nothing equals 0, then.
It's just none.
Okay.
But if, say, the denominator was x squared minus 4, you would have two verticals. What would they be?
Plus 2 minus 2.
X equals 2 and x equals negative 2. Make sense? All right. There was a hand up. Was Yvette? No?
I figured it out.
Okay. All right. Letter C. Now, whenever I do these morning reviews, all of them are on the test. And I typically don't ever star them because they're all on the test. Why would I star that one?
It's one that kids miss a lot.
It's one that kids miss a lot. I don't like giving trick questions, but it's slightly almost on the tricky side. It's not hard, just a little tricky. All right, Bahasa, anybody tell me what you would do first when you see this problem like the one like this on the test? Factor the top. Double bubble. Go ahead and do that now.
Did we ever do long division on the phone?
We didn't have to do long division because there was no slant. You only do slant when it is top heavy. And neither of those were top heavy. This wasn't and this wasn't. All right, so you only do long division if it's a top heavy graph. If it's top heavy, you do your slant. All right, what did you guys factor to?
X plus 2, X plus 5.
Oh, what ends up happening?
Yeah, plus 5.
All right, go ahead and continue.
Do you use the holes or do you just
Use the holes.
You only use the holes when you're graphing. So since we're not graphing, we don't have to worry about the holes.
So when you reduce, what can you do, or like what do you do when you don't reduce? So like say you had this exact same with the x plus 5's top and bottom, what could you find with the unreduced form?
Domain.
Domain, yes, correct. You find the domain, and they're not asking for domain, that's why we didn't stop and do that first. But if they did ask for a domain, would I have reduced right away?
No.
No. I would find the domain, and then everything else is found after, which since they didn't ask for the domain, I went straight to reducing.
Alright, so, alright.
All right? All right, what did you guys get for vertical?
We got X equals minus 2.
X equals -2. Horizontal,
D&E.
D&E, why is it D&E?
Top heavy. Oh, no, wait, it's the same.
Yeah, it's Y equals
My bad.
Y equals 1, and slant,
D&E.
slant none or D&E
Isn't it Y equals 1/3? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what
for this one up here,
1/3, right?
for the horizontal?
Yeah.
1/3. All right. Anybody disagree?
No.
Nobody.
It's
Nobody.
wrong.
It is wrong.
No,
Wait,
you're
yeah,
lying.
the ball is wrong.
Wait, so why would it be wrong?
Mhm.
Wait, no, wait.
So then I was right.
You don't disagree?
That's all right. I still wasn't right.
All right. Now, I don't disagree. Yes.
Wait.
You have to have the x equals 5 still.
No, that was
Would
the
you still think
question
it's
that
not
Meg
zero?
asked. I think it was you that asked me,
Yeah.
right? She said, do we have to worry about the hole? Do you agree crossing out the x plus 5 makes a hole? But did they ask me to graph?
No.
So do I have to worry about the
Oh, no.
hole? So that's not what's messing me up. Is everybody ready?
Wait.
Okay.
Big reveal.
Wait. I know what it is.
Yes.
Hold up.
All right, I'll give you a hint, and I will tell you this.
No.
That's why I marked it, because I said it's just a tad bit tricky. Pay attention right there and think really, really hard, what can you still do?
1/3.
Can you cross them out?
Oh. Can you still do a GCF? Hmm. And what ends up happening?
Become 1/3.
It becomes 1/3. And what did I say? If there's no variable in the denominator,
And there is nothing.
there's none, all the way through. So, I know. That's why I let you try it on your own, because what you guys all did was what most students do when they mess this one up. Now, I know, it was again, I call it a little bit tricky because when you see the denominator and it's in factored form, you assume it's factored. But was it factored completely? No. So keep your eye out for this kind of problem on the test. It doesn't happen very often. It's like once. When they're like, oh, they tried to trick me, they didn't factor. You factor completely, reduce. Bless you.
Bless you.
Got it? All right, questions on that one? Yes.
Just a question about the whole thing. Do you get it wrong if you still do X equals -5? Well, if say it wasn't this case, if it was the previous.
If it was the previous case and this here did not reduce the way it does now, those answers would have been right.
Okay.
But because it does reduce, if you gave me the other set of answers, would that be wrong?
Yes.
Yes. All right, got it? Okay, now back to the ones you guys tried on your own earlier. Can I reduce 24 and 2 and get 12x squared? Is that equivalent?
Yeah.
So is that the same as this?
Yeah.
Yes.
So with these two graphs be the same? Yes, so true or false? True. All right, next one. Do we all agree that I can factor out an x, get 2x plus 7, and reduce these x's as well? Just like I reduced.
That's my question.
You can't for domain though.
Okay, we can't for domain. Okay, good observation. And what was your question, Darren?
Well, I was just like wondering if
Does it
you
make it?
don't, like, even though you could cross it out, you don't have, like, you have a hole, right? So
You
it
have a
wouldn't-
hole,
so it wouldn't be the same.
so it wouldn't be the same. Good job. Okay, did you guys, he kind of thought through it. Did you hear the observation he made? He's, okay, first off, is 2x plus 7 equivalent to 2x plus 7?
Sure.
Okay, does reducing a constant impact our graph at all? Reducing a number.
No.
Does reducing a variable change our graph?
Yes.
Yes, because this one's going to have a what?
Whole.
A hole at x equals 0. Is this one going to have a hole?
No, it does not.
No, this is going to be just a linear graph. This one will be a linear graph with a
Whole.
hole. Are they going to be the same thing?
No, they're not.
No, so true or false? False. Now, is it because this is just one term and this one has two terms at the top?
Not necessarily.
No, nothing to do with the number of terms. It's what you're reducing. So when is it the same? When is it true? When you reduce a number, a constant. When is it false? When you reduce
Variables.
a variable, an x minus 2, whatever it may be. Got it?
Miss Torres.
Yes.
So if you have two terms, one that indicate that, would be the same graph though.
No, because it could have been like this. 12x squared plus 4x over 4. And you could factor out a 4. And I'm going to take off that x, sorry. And then you get, what would that be? 3x squared plus 1. And the 4's reduce. Would that be the same, yes or no? That would be the same because I just reduced a what? A constant, a number. Does that make sense? So it's only when you reduce a variable that it's not the same. All right, questions on that one? All right, number 3. Now, when you're graphing, is it okay to just do Bahasa?
No.
No, you have to do, who is that? Dominic. Domain,
X.
Ba, Ha, Sa. Don't forget your x-intercepts and your
Y.
y-intercepts. Go ahead and do that now.
There's also a tricky one there.
You had one like this on the quiz. Yes, I would say that of the graphing, because you have a whole page of graphing, this is the one that kids typically mess up on, which is why I'm doing it here. But we did have it just yesterday in the quiz, one very similar. All right, I'm going to let you guys work. Bless you. Do not forget to pay attention. Where do we look to find the vertical?
Denominator.
Denominator. Don't forget to look at your multiplicity. What does the multiplicity tell you?
The auto even.
Like, whether
Odd or
it's
even,
the
same direction or
Opposite.
opposite. Don't forget to pay attention to that, as well as your cross and bounce or your x-intercepts. Did you guys factor the numerator?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you tell me what you took out?
Negative X squared.
Negative x squared, and then you're left with x
Plus minus 5.
minus 5?
Yes.
Now, did that allow me to reduce?
No.
If it did not, why did I still have to factor? Because it helps me to find the what? When I factor the top, what is it helping me find?
Yeah, X.
The x-intercepts. You are correct. All right, go ahead and continue. Maybe not have the graph, but do you have all of your information filled in?
Almost
Almost? Okay, I'll let you keep working. All right, I'm going to put it up. Can you guys verify yours and see if you have the same thing? I haven't put my cross bounds and odd and even stuff. I will do that in just a second.
Yeah.
Do we agree? I'm really quick on your horizontal. Because it's the same, you take your leading coefficients. Do you guys see why the top one's -1 and the bottom one's 1? Yes? Be careful. It didn't happen here, but what if there was a 2x there and say a 4x there? What would I have to do with those? Multiply them. There was one like that on the quiz as well. The individual quiz you took on Friday. All right.
You know the Wiener, the horizontal latitude is -1.
Okay, how do we know this? Okay, let's start from the beginning. Does everyone see why it's all reals except for those two numbers?
Yeah.
Vertical, -3 and +3. Now, really quick, is it okay if you did this the same way we wrote this one?
No.
Excuse me. If you made that mistake on the test, what am I going to do? Mark it wrong. Same thing here. I had a lot of kids on the quiz just give me -1. Is that okay?
No.
No. I didn't mark that one wrong, and I should have, but I will mark it wrong on the test. I will tell you this. There was at least one group that made this mistake on this one. They did this. X equals +or-3. Or they wrote it like this. X equals -3, 3. That one I did mark wrong. Is it okay to write it that way?
No, it is not.
No, it is not. I've told you guys when you're writing your asymptotes, they're functions, they're graphs. Not functions, they are graphs. And so you have to give them their own variables. All right. Which one's odd, which one's even?
Odd is 3.
This -3, the multiplicity is 2, and this multiplicity is 1. Yes or no?
Yes.
Squared and first power. We're good? All right. Horizontal, you take the limit as x approaches infinity, and is it top heavy, bottom heavy, or the same? Degree is 3, or 2 + 1 is 3, and the degree down here is 3 as well, yes? So what do we do when the degree is the same? Leading coefficients, -1, +1. Y equals -1. Don't forget the y equals. Slant, why is a slant none?
Because it's a horizontal.
Because there is a horizontal as well as there's no, it's not top heavy. X-intercepts, 0, 5. How do I find them? I set the equation equal to 0. And what happens to the denominator every single time?
It goes away.
It goes away, and so I have 2 x-intercepts. What are they?
0 and 5.
And what do we know about one of them? One of them is a bounce. Which one?
X squared, so 0.
The 0 is a bounce, and this one is a cross. Yes or no?
Yes.
All right, are we ready? All right, -3. 1, 2, -3. And that is even. And then +3. And that is odd. -1. Oh, do I have to do a test value on this one? No, I only do test values when the horizontal is what? 0. If the horizontal is y equals 0 is when you do your test value. If it's not, you use your x-intercepts as a guide. All right, 0, 5, and y-intercepts already marked. All right, do you guys agree? I have 3 sections, left, middle, and right.
Yeah.
Start on the far left as we always do. Is it all underneath the dotted line or all above the dotted line? How do I know it's underneath? Right. And I can't have both, because if I have both, then it's not a function. It doesn't pass the vertical line test. So, if I had drawn it, if I drew it, not drawn it, yes.
Your x-intercepts are found by
Making the equation.
equal to 0.
And I only
So
wrote
why
the
did you
top.
set the bottom to 0?
I'm going to write it there. What happens when I do this? What do I multiply both sides by to clear it?
X plus 3
Squared. And x minus 3. And what happens? It crosses out here. And what happens when I multiply it by 0?
Oh, it goes to 0.
So you're left with just that.
Yes. Does that apply to all of them or
Because go ahead. And the y-intercept, you plug in 0. So 0 plus 0 over 9 times negative 3. So 0 over, what is that, negative 27? It's still 0.
Ma'am,
Yes.
is it even that bounces?
Even bounce.
I mean, even that goes the other way?
Yes, thank you, Miss O'Neill. Even goes in the same direction, odd goes in opposite direction.
So in this case, we'll be crossing the...
Yes, and that's where kids mess up. Okay, so before I continue with his question, any more questions on this section here? Because it looks like I went a little fast and I didn't explain everything. Are we good on all of that? Yes? All right, I didn't finish talking. Over here, if I was all at the top, what ends up happening?
Then there's a what? And then there's an x-intercept.
There's an right, but let me cover this piece. You're right, if I have both, it's not a function. But how do I know I'm all at the bottom? Because if I was all at the top, what ends up happening?
You're crossing the...
And that's what, that's what you guys both said. You cross the x-axis. Is that okay to just cross it because we want to?
No.
No. Now I have kids that say this, well, couldn't I do this? If you do that, that's saying that this line right here is a what?
It's asymptote.
Is that x-axis an asymptote? No, it's not. So it doesn't work at the top. So does everybody see why it's all at the bottom?
Yes.
All right. Now, Tyron pointed out that even means same direction, which means I'm coming from the top or the bottom. Now, this is where you guys asked, is this a tricky one? This is where kids mess up. Because they see this horizontal, they think there's no way I can pass it, so I must be coming from up here. But then it throws them off because it's even, and then they just mess the whole thing up. I am coming from the bottom, but what's going to end up happening?
It's going to go through.
And is it okay to cross the horizontal if you have to?
If you have to.
If you have to. And not only does it have to, I end up crossing it twice because that 0 is a bounce.
Now, I just realized, so you can only cross the horizontal with the middle piece? Okay, all the time, so you can't with the other.
For most of the time, yes. We had one in homework where we did cross it, and it was a little wonky, but that won't happen on the test. Yeah. All right. Okay, so do we have to cross the horizontal on this one?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. All right. Odd means same direction or opposite direction?
Opposite.
All right, so am I at the bottom or the top? Top, and only at the top I have that x-intercept to cross, and it is a cross, and the asymptote to approach, and did it work out?
Yes.
Yes. Questions on that one? No questions? All right, let's flip over to the back side. All right, graph, we have our domain, va, ha, sa, all reals, x cannot equal what? X cannot equal positive 3. Before you find your va, ha, sa, what do? Factor. Go ahead and do that now. All right, what is the top factor to? So x minus 3 into x plus 2, and does it reduce? And I'm left with what? No variables top or bottom. What does that mean about the va, ha, and the sa?
They're all D&E.
They're all D and E. They're all none, whichever one you want to write. It's your choice. How do I graph that? Yes. X-intercepts. Oh, and I didn't, and it's okay, and there's a reason why. No, it's because my function is y equals x plus 2. And yes, technically I should have. I'm going to go ahead and do it. I didn't give myself any room. What's the x-intercept? Set the equal negative 2?
2.
X-intercept, if I set this equal to 0, negative 2. And y-intercept, I plug in 0, 2. All right, we are going to graph Now, technically, we didn't need the x-intercepts and y-intercepts. It helps us, and I'm going to use them, and I'll explain why we didn't really need them.
But it's a straight line graph.
Because it's a linear graph. Do we know how to graph y equals x plus 2?
No.
Yes. What's your y-intercept?
2.
2, right? Because the plus 2?
Yeah.
And then your slope is up 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. Do I end up hitting the negative 2?
Yeah.
All right. Am I done? Can I move on? Say no.
No, you
No.
said
have
whole.
to,
It has a hole. Good job.
Yeah.
Put in the hole,
There is a hole at x equals,
-2.
what did I cross out?
-3.
Positive
My
3.
bad.
Or
X
positive.
equals
Positive 3.
+3.
Oh my god.
Why +3? Because I reduced the x minus 3. So 1, 2, 3, go up to your graph and put your hole. All right. Is correct.
Are you still done?
We are done. Now we are done.
Are you sure?
Now, I do want to tell you this. What if they gave you this on the test and they asked you to come up with your function? Could you do that?
This is fine.
Working backwards, let's talk about it. First off, it's a linear graph. Do you have enough information to find a linear
Yeah.
graph?
Yes.
What's the y-intercept?
The y-intercept is
2.
negative.
So we know b is 2. And the graph will be drawn in a way where you can count the slope. What's the slope in this one?
1.
1, so y equals 1x plus 2. Yes or no?
Yes.
All right. And then because there's a hole, that means I reduce something. If the hole's at +3, what did I
X
reduce?
is -3.
X minus 3 and x minus 3. And is that the same graph, the same function?
Would we have to solve it? I mean, simplify
Foil it? Good
Foil it,
question.
whatever.
Depends. If it's open response, you're done here. If it's multiple choice and they don't have this, but they have this, should you know they are the same thing?
Yeah.
Yes. So his question was, do you have to distribute and foil? Only if it's multiple choice and you're checking your answers to compare.
Men det är just efter att du går ordens in the graph.
What was that?
And check the right you ordens in the graph.
And no.
So you can just graph like that.
hmm Well, I mean, I have the tick marks there. It'll be drawn a little better when you have it on the test. All right. Limits. Why is letter A really easy? Because the limits, even though it looks difficult, it's approaching what? Can we use our shortcut on that one?
Yes, we can.
Top heavy, bottom heavy are the same.
Same.
Same. So we take the leading coefficient.
Or just 7 over 4.
4.
Why do you think kids mark 7 over 1?
Because that is
Yes.
Because it's whatever is in front.
And is that the leading coefficient?
No, it is not.
It is the 4. So 7 over 4. No work needed. 7/4, you're done. No work on the test for that one either. Letter B. Can I use this shortcut for letter B?
No.
No, because the limit's not approaching
infinity.
infinity.
I mean,
But it's really easy.
Okay, it is easy, but what's the most common wrong answer?
It's
D and E. They say D and E because plugging in 0, undefined, it must be D and E, but that's not correct. Factor, correct. What do I factor out?
an
X, and that leaves me with,
x minus 3.
and then what do I do next?
Cross out.
And that
Then put in the
le-
0.
And then I'm left with X minus 3, and then he said you plug in the 0, and 0 minus 3 is what? Negative 3? So this one has a little bit of work, and I would expect to see some work on something like this on the test. Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so when the limit is something other than infinity, you
Work it
factor
out.
and then plug it in.
Yes. Unless, let's say I plugged it in and the bottom wasn't 0, I can just plug in everywhere and reduce it at the end. I don't have to factor. You only have to factor and reduce when you plug it in and it's 0 at the bottom. Okay? All right.
C, can you just plug that right in?
Okay, so let's see. Letter C, he said, can we plug it right in? Before we talk about plugging it right in, why is it not the shortcut?
Because it's approaching 4.
It's approaching 4 rather than infinity. So can we plug it in? What's the square root of 4?
2.
And what's 2 minus 2?
0.
So D and E?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Oh, no, I'm not sure.
Wait.
It's equal 0, so you can't.
Okay.
No, because then you gotta put it on top too.
Okay.
Can you do the, what is it called?
The what is it called? You're on the right track. It has a special name.
This thing?
I can't.
Conjugate.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. Okay, before we address the conjugate, let's talk about what I heard before I heard conjugate. If you plug in at the top as well, is 4 minus 4 also 0?
Yes.
Yes.
And 0 over 0 is not 0.
Yes, it's still
And
there.
0 over 0 is not 1. It's still undefined.
Yeah. 'Cause
So,
you can't set up a 0.
can I just plug 4 in this one right away?
No.
No, and I can't factor, but there were two of you that recognize it's a conjugate type problem. Conjugate is when you multiply top and bottom by the conjugate. Now, do I pick the conjugate of the numerator or conjugate of the denominator?
Denominator.
So square root of x plus 2. Square root of x plus 2. All right. Now, the piece that's not the conjugate is the numerator. Do I FOIL that or leave it in factored form?
You leave it.
Why do I leave it in factored form?
You're gonna reduce.
Reduce later.
Because we're going to reduce later is correct. All right, the bottom one. In this case, the bottom is the conjugate. Do we FOIL that one? All right, what is x times, or root x times root x?
X.
And negative 2 times positive 2.
-4.
Why didn't I do all the outside-inside business?
Because they cancel out.
They cancel out. All right, what reduces here?
X minus
X.
And you're left with square root of x plus 2. Should you write that in your answer column? You do not. I had kids do that on the quiz. What do I do?
Equals 0.
You plug it in.
I plug it,
Oh, my bad.
and what do I plug in, 0 or 4?
4.
4. Square root of 4
It's 2.
is 2, plus 2 is
4.
4. All right. So this kind of, again, this kind of problem I would need work. That one, no work. Work, work. I would need to see some work on these two. What about letter D? Can I, yes.
For letter C, I don't get like your thought process on how to get the conjugate.
How do you know it's a
Or not-
conjugate?
yeah.
All right. Can you tell me, you said you recognized it right away that it was a conjugate. And it took a while, but you were like, oh, I got it. Okay, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I mean, like, when you plug it in, it doesn't work.
Okay, stop
So-
there. Plugged it in, it didn't work. That was the first thing. Okay, keep going.
But then, like, also, I don't know if this is, like, the right way to do it, but on all our problems that had conjugates, there was, like, a square root, so I thought that might be one.
He's true. He's observed all the ones that have had conjugates are the square root problems. Do you think this is going to be another conjugate?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And you're right, because we don't factor ones that have the square root, so we can't factor it, so it must be a conjugate problem. All right, makes sense? I'm glad you asked. Okay. Shortcut on letter D, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Why?
Because of the limit
Anti will
is
fit.
infinite.
Infinity. All right. Top heavy, bottom heavy are the same.
Option.
Bottom, which means
0.
0. Do you need work on that one?
No.
No. All right. Letter E.
So how can you tell you don't have to factor? It's because you can't?
You don't have to factor when it's infinity, because infinity is the shortcut.
Okay.
All right, infinity's top heavy, bottom heavy are the same. That's
Yeah.
it. All right. This one, shortcut, yes or no?
No.
All right, so back to the question that was asked, how can you tell it's a conjugate? And Darren said with the square roots. Can you tell this is a conjugate?
Yes.
All right.
But
Con-
if it has a square root, it's always going to be
Mhm.
conjugate.
Yep. All right. So,
Tricky.
conjugate of the numerator or conjugate of the denominator?
Of the numerator.
This one's the numerator because that's where the conjugate's at. 4 plus square root of 18 plus x or 18 minus x?
18 plus x.
And minus.
Minus.
Minus. The inside stays the same. It's this sign here that changes. 4 plus the square root of 18 minus x. Do I FOIL the non-conjugate piece? No, and the non-conjugate piece is the top or the bottom. So I'm going to leave that in factored form. And we are going to FOIL the top. What's 4 times 4?
16.
And what happens when I multiply that last piece with the radicals? What happens?
It
Radical
becomes
goes away.
regular. Oh, not regular.
Does it cross out that radicals undo each other? Where did I mess up? Yes.
You did not distribute the negative.
Good job. Remember when I told you guys that on the quiz? A lot of kids forget that. You're subtracting the whole radical. Just because the radical's crossed out doesn't mean that negative doesn't get distributed to the two pieces. I'll let you guys finish. All right, finish it off. Did I mess up somewhere? Plus x squared.
Numerator.
Oh, thank you. Not the numerator. Oh, yes, the numerator. Right here. I said it and then I didn't do it myself. What goes here? Tisk, tisk for Mrs. Torres. Plus x. And you guys, I'm sure, got that on your own. Thank you. Bless you. scare me like that. Please
Sorry,
don't do
I'm
that
asking
again.
myself. Chair bends.
All right. What happens here in the top? What's 16 minus 18?
2.
Negative 2 plus x. Is that the same as x minus 2? And does it cross out with the x minus 2? And then what do you do next?
You ask me
You just plug it in.
You plug it in. Anybody tell me what you got? 1 over
8.
1 over 8?
1 is 4 plus 6, root 16, which is 4 plus 4.
Okay. 1/8. Yes?
I don't get it.
All right. When you plug in the 4 here, I'm going to do the work on this side. You get 1 over 4 plus the square root of 18 minus, and what are we plugging in for x? 2, and what's 18 minus 2? And what's the square root of 16? 4 plus 4. Got it?